back to the Encounter Mercy podcast. I'm Father Andy, and of course, I am joined by my lovely co-hosts, Jesse Spinagle and Vince Trigo. And Vince, of course, behind the camera again. It's still wrong.
I know.
We're still working this out, figuring out what we want. He said to us right for recording, number one, that I had to be quiet, and I didn't understand, so I kept asking, do I really have to be quiet? And then the other thing was, poke the bear. That's what I do best. That's who I am. But then, he said, I'm slowly making this your guys' podcast. No, Vince, you're still the founder of this. You're the one that called me out of the blue and said to me, hey, we got to do this.
We need a letter writing campaign.
Yeah.
No, they don't do that anymore. Email writing campaign.
Yeah, no, it takes somebody with some technical know-how to produce a podcast that I think we needed. We needed to do
with the video.
With
absolutely.
the video aspect. Yeah, the first two videos that we shot, I was kind of looking a little crazy off camera. So you'll notice in the first two videos for the ones from last week and the week before, every time I went to go change the camera angle, I was like looking off camera and I look kind of weird. It's like, everyone's probably thinking, what is Vince doing? Like, is he he's always looking over his shoulder, like someone's gonna come get him. So this way, it just kind of makes it easier. I got my little control center here, and so
hopefully
that's my reasoning.
We'll make it work.
We'll make it work, and hopefully, with our poor little staff that we have here, we can beg for the alms of the people, and we can can get some help and have it built up correctly, so that way.
Hey, that sounds like a great segue into our conversation.
We did it again. We're really good at these segues.
Yeah, we totally are.
Yeah.
So what are we talking about today?
Almsgiving. So in almsgiving, I heard this wonderful phrase today, and I was thinking about it a lot more. In almsgiving, the first stage of almsgiving is what we talked about last week, which of course is fasting. So in fasting, we talked about the fact that it can lead us to something greater, right? And in our fasting can come these great moments of prayer, which of course we talked about 2 weeks ago. And so then through our fasting comes prayer, and in our prayer, we can hear the word of God speak to us and ask us about almsgiving. So I gotta ask you, what exactly is almsgiving?
That's a good question, because I think it takes on many forms. You've heard the cliche, time, talents, and treasures.
Oh, of course. As a priest, just a few weeks ago during the Catholic Services Appeal, that's what we all were talking about.
You can't share your money? Share
your time and your talents.
But no, I think there is a beauty to that. It also, is it tithing? Is it giving your money? What about those guys on the side of the road who are playing guitar and here, give us money, and then they pull away in their BMW?
Yeah.
How does that work with almsgiving?
Yeah, that's a very good point. Yeah, almsgiving can sometimes be confusing for some people. I think, thinking back to when I was in grade school, one of the ways that we always did it through Mount Carmel was those rice bowls, right? Project Rice Bowl. And never really understood that as a kid. I just knew that we got these cardboard boxes that were in weird shapes that we had to put together, and then you put your change in it. But was that really almsgiving? Andrew, you're going to give up your milk today, which I probably should have not been drinking anyways. But giving up my milk today so that way we can put in the rice box, rice bowl.
I honestly, I always thought those were a unique way to give. I had youth group kids who would put them in the refrigerator. So every time they were hungry, they would go get money, either from their savings or whatever, or their allowance, and they would put something in there. And I think it's a way of training ourselves to really what almsgiving is. I think this is a good opportunity to really focus in on that giving aspect.
Absolutely.
Almsgiving is that selfless, with no strings attached, sacrificial gift. There's no benefit to me, and I'm going to try to help somebody. And I think that, honestly, that's kind of rare today. We have almost a lack of sincerity in giving. It's always there's some benefit to me. There's some kickback I'm going to receive. I think that beauty of almsgiving, to truly give everything or something to maybe someone you don't even know.
Yeah.
that there's an opportunity there for faith. There's an opportunity for growing, especially during the season of Lent.
Absolutely. You know, we have all these giving abilities, like we were joking, the time, talent, and treasure. The treasure is the most obvious one because we always think about it. But, you know, maybe the Lord is calling you this Lent to give of your time, and it could even be of your time to your children, right? If you're a parent, I don't have that responsibility, thanks be to God. But as a parent, I'm sure that you have a lot of opportunities in your day-to-day life that you could offer up more time to be with them.
Yeah.
And that's another way that we can give alms, and not just to our families, but then, of course, to the church and other ways.
I think, we'll go ahead, Vince. Yeah.
Well, I was going to say, like, one thing that is it's not fairly simple to everybody, but like a lot of people who have like technical gifts, for example, like plumbers, electricians, people like that. You know, give if your church has an issue, like a plumbing issue, electrical issue, like offer to help.
Yeah.
Because it costs a lot of money if you were to hire somebody out. You know, I like to be able to do some of this techie stuff for St. Jude, and like that's my way of looking at giving my talents, so to speak, and my time really to the church. So like, if you have a particular skill, and everybody has something that the church needs, right? And volunteering, we have a lot. Like, there's not as many volunteers in the church, I think, as there used to be.
That's very true.
And it's not just in the church. You know, I'm involved in volunteer fire departments and stuff like that. Like, they're suffering as well because people don't want to volunteer anymore for whatever reason. Multiple reasons why, whether you have multiple jobs, you know, lots of kids, we're just more comfortable as a society. And so if it's something that's out of our comfort zone, like volunteering to help somebody else to do something, well, I'd rather spend my time at home, you know, scrolling through Instagram or TikTok, or just being with my family in general, right? And so how do we change that? Because eventually there's going to be nobody that wants to spend their time, hopefully.
Absolutely.
Hopefully that never happens, but like that seems to be like where we're going, unfortunately.
I heard a priest one time say, you know, what you spend your time with is what you love. And that's really the measure of this. And I think you hit it right on the head there. Like, what, especially with, you know, church, how are we almsgiving with our church? How are we giving back? I mean, you're exactly right. When there's a lot of people, there's a lack of volunteers, where the church used to be the center of community where, you know, people gave constantly of their time. That mentality's kind of gone away. So maybe we need to get back to that. I think almsgiving is a good practice because, you know, oftentimes, you know, at least, hey, I can help out with this. This is my talent. This is my gift right here. I can share this and help build up the church. So that's a really good way to look at it, I think.
Absolutely. You know, when we were talking about in the 2 past weeks with prayer and fasting, we talked about, especially with fasting, you know, giving up something that is a good, right? Giving up chocolate is not inherently bad, it's not inherently evil, but giving it up for something better. St. Basil has this wonderful quote where he says, the bread that you do not use is the bread of the hungry. The garment hanging in your wardrobe is the garment of the person who is naked. The shoes you do not wear are the shoes of the one who is barefoot. The money you keep locked away is the money of the poor. The acts of charity you do not perform are the injustices you commit. Now, and just thinking about that in the small ways in the beginning, the bread you do not use is the bread of the hungry. Okay, so we're going to fast. We're going to fast this Lent. And in that fasting, like we were talking about with the rice bowl, instead of eating that extra food and you're giving up that portion of it, whether it's monetarily or however you're giving it up, to give back to the people. There's the almsgiving. There's the giving of ourself, right? Those shoes that you do not wear. You know, I think we all have a lot of clothes that we probably either don't fit into anymore. I have a shirt that I'm still holding on to that someday I'm going to fit back into. Probably never will, but
well, the thing is, you're a priest, so that's all you wear all the time anyway. So
right, yeah, that's right. Because on camera, everybody sees me in this all the time, but in reality. But no, in all honesty, though, I think about it, you know, we probably all have clothes that we could give up, or the shoes that we could give to other people. But then that last one, he really hits it hard. He really hits you hard. The acts of charity you do not perform are the injustices you commit. And, you know, honestly, I think that leads back to the sin that I think most people are guilty of without even realizing it, are the sins of omission. When we do not do what we know is right, when we do not follow through with what we know we should be doing because it might be inconvenient for us. And I'm guilty of that one too, absolutely. I mean, because it's so much easier for me to just sit down and do nothing than get up and go do what I know is needed to be done.
Yeah, or even look the other way when someone needs help. How many times do you see videos online of someone getting beat up or hurt or in a car wreck, and other people are just pulling out their phones and just
Videoing
shooting
it.
video. It's like,
Yeah.
well, try to see if you can help the person, for crying out loud.
Yeah.
I want to echo the one thing you said. The bread that you do not use is the bread of the hungry. I think that really echoes our Father, right?
Yeah.
Give us this day our daily bread. Just give me enough for today, Lord. Not for next week. Not if we're really praying that prayer, it gives new meaning to it, doesn't it? I mean, honestly, we all want to have savings and all want to have this storage of we're going to be taken care of. But when we honestly rely on God every day, we're just saying, okay, just give me enough to sustain me today.
Yeah.
That's kind of scary.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting because Jesus, he doesn't say things just because. He has a reason for it. And when he's teaching the Our Father and he talks about that giving us our daily bread, the Jewish people in the crowd are going to understand what he's referencing to. So if we go back to our time in the desert with the Israelites as they're going through the desert, remember the manna that the Father gives, that God gives to his people? They only can take enough for that day. Because you remember what happens if they take more? It becomes moldy and rotten over in just 24 hours, right? And so that he's talking in the Our Father, he's talking about that, but he says the same thing to us today, just like you said, just what we need for today, because otherwise it's going to go rotten. Otherwise it's not going to be what we need.
As we kind of wrap up, what do you guys think about, I mean, what about the guy on the street who has a drug problem, and we're just going to take that money and go buy more alcohol? How do we as Catholics respond to that? I mean, I want to help, and that's what the devil does. He takes something that he knows is holy, like help the poor, and he just perverts it enough and makes it evil. And you're like, I want to help this guy, but it's so complicated. What should we do in that instance, within the spirit of almsgiving?
Absolutely.
I mean, Vince, what do you think? I mean,
Well, it's tough to answer that question because there's how far do you want to go with this? How much are you willing to commit to help this guy in his life, right? So giving him money, you know what's going to happen with that, right? So it's probably not worth doing that. Maybe offering to pray with him would be a nice, easy one, just something that doesn't require a whole lot of investment on your side, because everything I'm guessing I'm going to mention here is just more investment on each one, and each one is good. And so, there are times where we're unable to help somebody else just because of the way things are in our lives, and that's okay as long as we're, I think, trying. But sitting down, offering to pray with him would be one thing. Another one is I just don't have the time as much anymore, but I used to volunteer at a soup kitchen on a pretty regular basis growing up. And just sitting there and talking to those people and hearing their stories, and then not necessarily just offering advice, but at least being there to kind of listen and try to build a relationship with them. That, I think, is something that there is lacking in their lives, because everyone who comes around is usually taking advantage of them in some way, or kicking them out of somewhere, or there's usually a lot of negative interaction with other people. And so I think that's one thing that can help. I'm not saying you have to be best friends with a guy and take him home and shower him and give him your spare bedroom, but at least be there and be present with him, and maybe offer to pray with him, maybe offer some advice, even financial life advice, things like that. But to look at them as sons and daughters of Christ, right? And they're no different than us. They just made some different decisions in their lives.
Yeah, I that's one thing it just always tugs at my heart. I think you hit it there. What level of involvement? I think we have some good organizations that we know we can give to, that kind of have those filters, those built-in Like I said, it's not just let me get you a job, and feed you, and it's much. There's addictions and mental illness, and there's so much involved in poverty now.
Yeah, and if you're not equipped to be able to handle that, then you might just cause more damage too. So you have to be careful there as well, because when you're dealing with mental health and addiction, it's easy to one, be taken advantage of there, or two, make it worse by trying to do something you think is right that is actually going to make things worse for them overall.
Yeah, oftentimes it's not wise or healthy to give the person cash. It's often not wise or healthy to offer to drive them anywhere. Especially, look at yourself. Depending on where you are in your life, if you are a single woman, I would never encourage you to pick someone up on the side of the road that you could possibly get hurt by. But that doesn't mean you can't stop and maybe call the police if they're injured. I think about a former teacher that I had that we both know. He talked about one time in class, as he's driving down the road, he saw a person get hit by a car. He himself couldn't do anything, but he stopped. He called the police. He stayed there until the person was able to be helped. But there was nothing he himself could do. And that there is an act of charity, because most people would just walk on by.
Yeah, I had one experience. Whenever I worked in EMS that I won't really ever forget, just because it was just like at the end of it, it was just like, these people are so cruel. There's this homeless man. It was freezing cold outside. It was the middle of, I think, of January, February, in the middle of the night, and he had fallen in the middle of the street, and he was just kind of laying there. And he was drunk too, but someone called, thankfully. But the people who called were just standing around him, looking at him, making fun of him, kind of deal. Instead of, hey, offering him to help him out, maybe get him a blanket or something, or try to warm him up, anything. Try to comfort him in any way. And they just making fun of him all the way up until we showed up, and even afterwards. And I was like, really? It made me angry enough that I remember it to this day anyway.
This is a complex issue for many Catholics, I think. I think we kind of have to find a way to, once again, we're good at talking about prayer, and I would say fasting would probably be the next, but I think this aspect of the prayer life, what we're called to during Lent here, is something that we are missing. And there's just such a convoluted message here. What is almsgiving? I hope we brought some clarity today to maybe some ways we can get involved, but do it, I think, with sincerity. I think do it with empathy. Like Francis says, this year, he gave us his New Year's resolutions. He says, encounter the poor in person in some way. So if we can all have a way of doing that, maybe that's through a charitable organization, maybe that's, I don't know what that looks for you, but I think we all have an obligation to search for that this season of Lent. Absolutely.
Yeah, I think it's a great conversation, a great place to leave off. And just to remember that, the poor are always going to be with us, right? They're not going to go anywhere. Even though we, as a society, especially in the United States, we progress, there's still going to be people who are cast out or are shunned and need help from the faithful.
Mm-hmm. And so this Lent, make sure that you're doing your part to try to dedicate some time to your family, even if you aren't married, making sure you take some time with family, taking time for your studies or your work. We all should continue to be studying. We should all continuing to be growing in our faith. Helping others through the different services. There's plenty of service opportunities left still during our Lenten season that you can pick up something, some good act, or donating some material good that whether you don't need it anymore, or maybe even going out of your way to buy something to give to the homeless shelter or the food pantry. Contact your local parish food pantry and see what they have to say, because they might need some benefit, something that you can give. And there's numerous food pantries within our parishes and within our communities. And number one thing is to be generous with our virtues, with charity, with forgiveness, with patience, with our love, with our time with others, because that's truly when I think we're going to make the biggest impact, is when we are truly looking out for our brothers and sisters, calling each other back to the mystery of the cross.
Amen.
And the other thing you can do is subscribe if you haven't already subscribed to the podcast. And if you haven't already seen us on YouTube, we are on YouTube, so I ask you to subscribe to Encounter Mercy on YouTube as well. And like us on social media, and send us an email, send us a DM on Facebook or Instagram on anything that you want us to talk about, because we'd be happy to devote a whole episode to something that you want to know about within the Catholic faith. So until next time, everybody, take care and God bless.